Hello everyone and welcome back to the Educational Currency Podcast. I'm Chris Kaladikis from Maximum Education.
I'm Robin Namoski from the Coaching College and Ultimate Jiu-Jitsu.
And today we're continuing on with our look into teachers who are at different points in their careers. And so we're very lucky today to have joining us Mr. Luke Rodriguez from as our Proficient teacher, coming in with your perspective on what teaching has been like. So welcome, Luke.
Thank
Welcome
you guys.
on,
Thanks
Luke.
for having me. Thank you.
So Luke, big question. When did the proficiency happen?
It happened last year, technically, where you had to, more or less, you have to work for 160 days, I think it is. And then in those 160 days, you have to more or less fill out like a portfolio of like lesson planning, assessment tasks and stuff like that. And then send it off to NESA and then they approve it. And then you get a nice bump in your pay.
And you're officially then a professional. Like
Yes.
you are.
Okay.
You know, it actually says you actually get the actual certificate.
Yeah, I got a
saying
certificate
it.
in the mail, yeah.
How many years in were you?
So last year was my second year.
Yeah.
So I'd only been teaching I've been technically teaching for now 4 years because I started in 2021 because in my last year of my degree, I was able to get my casual number, casual teaching number. So I did a year at a school out in Southwest Sydney, co-ed school, partially selective. So that was a bit tough, but I learned a lot from that. And then got a job at my old high school and have been there ever since.
Does the casual teaching count towards the proficiency? Or
So I had to get a statement of service from, because it was a department school, I had to get a statement of service from them and then just add it on. So that helped out.
So it's 2 years of full-time teaching, or is it a bit more?
Well, it's 160 days, so it's more or less 2 years, I would say.
2 years. So 2 years of full-time teaching,
Yeah.
you apply to NESA for your proficiency.
Yeah.
And how much is the bump in pay?
Well, now it's a lot more, but back then it wasn't too much. But with all the little increases we've had, it does help.
Yeah, it makes it worthwhile. So
Yes.
slowly we are getting paid.
We're getting there. It's going in a good direction.
Absolutely.
Well then, Luke, let's go right back to the beginning. Like, tell us about your educational journey, okay? What's your background?
Yeah, well, so I went to the University of Sydney. My degree was 5 years.
Yeah.
And I did a double degree in English and history with a more focus in ancient history. So 5 years there. You do your first prac in your third year at USyd. I've probably changed it by now because I know they've moved to a 4-year degree. My first prac was at an all-girls school in West Sydney as well. And that was too good, and it was actually really good for my first time out. I learned a lot from my mentor. She was really good. The best advice she gave me was when the final bell goes, switch off. Go live your life, go to the gym, soccer training, whatever you need to do. And then, maybe around 8:30, 9 o'clock, that's when you check emails again and then you can do some work for the next day. But I've taken that ever since, like, till now. Well, I've tried to at least. So I did that. And then my other prac was at the school that I ended up working at as a casual teacher. But COVID kind of stifled that a little bit. Yeah. So we had to do some of my prac over Zoom. And that was cool because I just had to put work on Google Classroom and, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then make sure they did it. And so I did that. And then graduated, went casually taught at the school. Then saw an ad on Teachers Net from my old high school, and I thought, why not? And then I got interviewed by their new principal and my old English teacher. So that was surreal. He didn't like it when I called him by his first name. When I called him sir, he wanted me to call him by his first name. I think I had the interview on like a Monday, and then I got the call from the boss on the Thursday saying that I got it, and I was overwhelmed. It was I got emotional. Yeah. I called my dad. I was really happy, it was really good, and I'm really happy to be back there because I thought I said, like, when I finished I'd never go back. I was like, I've finished my chapter there. I've done my 6 years there. I don't need to go back, but I don't know. It was a nice new challenge, and then working under the teacher that had me when I was at school was good motivation, and he was a good mentor. And I'm able to, I have some pride in the school, and I went there, so I kind of know how it goes.
I myself am very pro going back to your old high school because you find that you've got those connections to the school culture itself, and you grew up in the area and helps you like connect with the students. You know kind of what they're doing outside, and you know who the local soccer clubs are. And it's funny, hey, you maintain that connection. You don't realize how the school is a part of a bigger community, and you get that different perspective, which allows you to connect with those students at that school. Is that something you found as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I play for the local football team, and the kids, when they see like the jacket that I wear, they're like, oh, I play for that team.
Yeah.
Oh, so I saw you on the weekend playing. You're not that good. I'm like, okay. But
So what's it like having your teachers and the teachers that taught you, then colleagues?
yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
How long did it take before it didn't become weird?
It's
What
still
would-
weird, I would say. It's still weird. Yeah, like calling them by their first name is definitely weird. A lot of them were like, you didn't say much at school. So that was funny. And some of them, I was scared of when I was at school, but they're really nice people. They
Who
just
would have thought?
yeah, they just, they have that persona, that different mask.
So which department was the scary one?
Oh no, there was at least every department had one scary teacher, I would say. Yeah, it wasn't just one department. They all had their scary people.
The mean teachers.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask you after this podcast about who some of these teachers were.
So here's a question for students and teachers. What makes a teacher scary? From a teacher's perspective and a student's perspective.
Well, I think it's when they're stern and intimidating, and like doesn't matter what gender they are, how tall they are, if they go to the gym or anything like that. It's when you walk in the room and you know that if you drop your pencil or you're not looking the right way, you're going to get in trouble. That's when you know that you have a scary teacher.
Yeah.
And I've found that majority of them turn out to be the best teachers because they actually care about what they're actually delivering in the classroom. But there's a flip side to that. Some of them, I don't know, were just angry for other reasons.
It's actually very funny, like you've said it that way. And I know you're a fan of wrestling just like myself too. And I always find, and one recommendation is to new teachers, that it very much is like wrestling. Like you're a persona when you go into that room. And I bet you found out with many of these teachers, they're not really that way when they're outside the classroom. It's a show and it's that intimidation, so that they do get the kids to be disciplined. And I found that connection always interesting, even in my own first few years of teaching.
So how do you think the kids perceive you now?
Oh, I don't know. I feel still they think I'm the cool new teacher.
Cool young teacher.
Yeah. But I'm trying to do different things with the junior years just to be a bit more stern. So then they just get a bit more kind of going on in the classroom.
I enjoyed being the cool new teacher for a while. I'm long past it.
Yeah. You're still cool.
You're too nice to me.
You got to teach me that.
Yeah. Oh, come on, Rob. You're the standard.
No, not really.
Well, look, let's go right back to the beginning now. So you've told us a bit about your journey. What led you to deciding, teaching's the career for me?
So when I was at school, I had two teachers. I had a math teacher who I didn't get along with.
Yeah.
And I really liked math. Like math was my favorite subject. I preferred it to English. Loved math, but did not just suck the life out of me in terms of my love for math. So that was one thing that stuck with me. And then when I got to senior like year 11, 12, I had a really good English teacher. And it was the first time I had a teacher who was like, all right, send me the work and I'll mark it and I'll give you some feedback. I was like, oh, okay, well, I better send it to him because he actually wants it. So then I sent it to him, and then, going from that little thing, I was like, all right, he actually cares. So then obviously I put a lot of time into my work and wanted him to, read my work, give me feedback, and then, go well and, try to and then prove something, I guess. And that stuck with me. I was like, all right, so maybe I'll do teaching.
So that teacher in particular inspired you for teaching, or was you always had that passion from before?
Well, both the negative and the positive experience both inspired me. But yeah, I guess when I was younger, like I would help tutor my sister and stuff like that. Like I tutored in year 11 and 12 kids math. So I was always kind of there. And then I did get accepted early entry for a teaching degree. But then I decided not to do it because I was kind of in a headspace where I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
A lot of boys are in that at the moment in year 11, 12. Yeah. So I kind of bounced around a little bit. And then I had a big conversation with my dad and I was like, look, maybe I'll just become a Sparky, just do a trade. That seems simple. I don't have to worry about, studying. I'm overstudying. And he just told me, you're not built for it. You've seen what I have to do. My back kills, like this and that. And I was like, all right. So then I went back to teaching and haven't looked back.
Good choice.
That's it. Well, then, once you've now come out of uni now, okay, and you're at the point now where, you've just become proficient, how were those first few years once you got out of uni? Like, was it kind of what you expected, or was it like, nah, this isn't anything like that, what they prepared me for? I know that your pracs do kind of give you a bit of guidance, but how did you find that in your own journey?
Yeah, definitely the pracs help. Yeah, the pracs definitely, like, you learnt more on the pracs. But yeah, the first, like, when I was thrown into it, I was on year 7 homeroom, so that meant you have to like do year 7 orientation, all that. So like, and the English, the head of English at the time, he didn't like put me into like the Google the Drive. So I didn't. He's like, I'm just going to give you the holiday off. Don't look at any of the programs. So when you rock up first day, then you can get into it. And because I like to be organized, that stressed me to no end because I had no idea what I was doing. Like all the teachers had, the whole term or whatever, the whole holidays to prepare. I had nothing. So I was like, I'll do it on that day. And then I had to be with year 7 the whole day. So I was really stressed. So I just spent the weekends kind of prepping everything and doing all that. And then, you think that's that's the main aspect, but it's not. Then you've got, camps, you've got roles, you've got, excursions, you've got, masses during the day, all that stuff, duties and stuff, emails, phoning parents, and you don't realize the extent of your role. And at times you're almost a doctor as well, a psychologist, you're all these things. You give advice as well. It's a lot.
You've learned a lot in that time frame, haven't you? And it's funny because I think a lot of people often do think in the role of teaching that, we're just conveying information, we're just standing in front and the students are going to just sit there and just absorb it all. But no, there's so many layers to the school itself, and dealing with teenagers and all those hats you have to wear.
Yeah, absolutely. So stepping into your role, what was the biggest shock factor? Or the one thing where you realized, I didn't realize this. Wow, okay, well, I was a student, but now as a teacher, okay, I didn't absolutely comprehend this was going to happen.
Oh, I think just realizing that, the kids are going through things as well as the other, like the teachers. Well, we're all human at the end of the day. So, some kids, you don't know what's going on in their personal life. And, with teaching, year coordinators sometimes can't share certain things to the teachers because it's, that confidentiality. So you don't know. And then, you might get really angry at a kid for not doing their homework, for example, but he or she has a proper reason, but he's not going to divulge that. And then when you phone home, then you find out the reason, and then you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'll give him the week off. That's the biggest thing.
Feeling of guilt going.
And you don't know sometimes, and that's hard. We have to realize that every kid's going through something.
Yeah, they've all got a story, don't they? Yeah,
no, especially when you're so young relative to them. So literally, what's a 10-year age gap, if that?
Yeah.
Even less in some cases. You're probably about 5 years removed from some of the year 12s, or maybe a little bit more, sorry.
Yeah, a little bit more for me. But definitely. I think at least in my circumstance, it was good that I kind of jumped around a few degrees so I could be a bit slightly more older than them, even though I look 12. But yeah, definitely I'm not too far. Like, some of them I'm like their brothers' ages or something like that. So they're older brothers' ages. So I can still kind of connect and relate to a certain degree with some of them in that regard. But they're all human beings. They're all going through something, and that's the biggest thing that I didn't realize.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing to realize. It's actually good you mentioned that because people need to know this stuff. Our fellow teachers too.
That's right. And what was the most positive thing? So something where you went, wow, I really sunk my teeth into this.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think just when you have a year 12 class and you have them, like, generally you don't have a lot of classes for 2 years. You might have the same kids, or maybe you get the same class very rarely. So having a year 12 crew from year 11 to year 12, that's big. So you definitely develop that rapport with them. And then, finding out at the end of it all, they'll write a card to you and they say, I never liked English before. Now I love it. I'm going to miss all these, the 1 hour or 50 minutes we had every few days. And like, that's big. Some of them I didn't realize I had that much of an impact because sometimes they didn't say anything. But, kind
of like you, eh?
Yeah, I guess so. But for them, it was a lot. It was a highlight of their day. And I'm glad that's what it was. So
that's good. It's good because you can see do you see yourself in some of them?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I feel like, I don't know about you, but, with some of the kids, I'm like, you remind me of a kid I went to school with.
Always.
Yeah, it's just the same people over and over again, And sometimes I see some of me and some of the kids, and I'm like, all right, okay, I know how to kind of trick you into doing work. But yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of kids, and they're all different personalities, and that's hard to kind of get your head around too.
And that year 11 and 12 journey, like it's funny because you'll do it multiple times, but it's almost always special yet always different. You know, going through that, and kind of when you do it, awaken that spark in young people, and and just seeing them achieve, they become memories, and that is one of the most rewarding parts of the jobs, I think, being able to take a year 11 and 12 group, no matter what faculty, it's slightly different too, because you're right, in English, it is a challenge. It often is, like, especially in an all boys scenario, it might be their favorite subject, and if you can inspire them in that way, well, that's amazing too. In mathematics too, then that might be prerequisites for them to get into their engineering degree or something like that. So that has that aspect. I know with tech, we've got a major work in the woodwork area, so their journey is different there. So they're going on that 2-year journey, but all their different teachers are carrying them in different ways. And so it is a really special part of the teaching process.
Shapes the characters. But then what about the school, the teachers in general? So first thing is, was there something with the teachers? Did you have any negative experiences or something where you went, okay, wait a second, I wasn't expecting this?
As a teacher?
As the teacher, from the staff? Just to give, say, young teachers stepping into the role the heads up.
Yeah, I think, and I'm kind of be going through this the last few years. I think it's kind of realizing that, every teacher's at a different point in their teaching career. Some have been there and done that, and they're kind of on the end run. Some teachers are there, like, kind of in the middle, and they're aspiring to maybe be a year coordinator or curriculum coordinator or what have you, and they're kind of trying to get promoted. You got some teachers happy where they are. They love teaching and they love what they do. They don't want to be head of department or anything like that. They just like to be in the middle kind of thing. And then you got the first year teachers who are very bright and bubbly for the first few weeks, and then reality comes crashing back. But yeah, every teacher's at a different point, and I think you got to realize that.
What about your own personal experiences? Anything in particular where you just want to know your personal experiences, good and bad? We obviously want to get the negative ones out of the way first. But it is something where people can be aware of. Yeah. So was there anything particular with yourself that just happened to you personally that you were willing to share with us, that maybe other teachers, young teachers, can relate, or maybe someone else that listens to the podcast, hears the story, can be, clued into?
Yeah, I think you just got to realize that you're working, like, essentially you're in a team. So I'm in the English faculty.
Yeah.
So we have the head of department and the assistant department, and then everyone who works underneath them, and we're a team. Okay, so if I'm on year 7 with another 5 teachers, and I've made a resource, it's not expected, but generally you'd share it around.
Yeah.
Okay, you wouldn't just hold it for yourself. But then on the flip side, I've spent maybe 3 hours making this resource. No one else has sent me any resource. Why should I send it to them? So there's that.
Okay, there's
that conflict. And then, but for the betterment of the department, if you think it's a good resource and you share it, then obviously it helps everyone. But what I like is if I share something to my team and then they're like, oh, this is good, but maybe you could fix, then maybe I'll add this because this, you've left out this. When that happens, okay, sweet, we've got a good working department that's thriving and everyone's kind of helping each other. And also, like, being in, like, the youngest in a department, you feel pressure. You don't want to kind of keep asking people for resources, like, because you feel like you're nagging them and stuff like that. So you kind of, like, at least I just started making them myself because I'm like, well, I maybe it'll look good if I start making stuff and sharing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, stuff like that. And yeah, just working in a team, and just kind of, you're not going to get along with everyone that you work with, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. But you have to kind of be professional about it and able to, just, okay, so I don't like you, but we're going to work through this because we have to work together. And, we're...
Do you actually, have you seen scenarios where people actually, they tell you they don't like you, or you can just sense that from each other?
If someone doesn't like me, I'd rather them tell me.
Does it happen that way? Now, for young teachers to know, because sometimes they could be clued in. The person may not like them. They may not get the hint.
Yeah.
Is it a direct approach, or is it a more of a...
I think sometimes it's like, let's say there's 5 of us and one person might not receive the resource. Right, and that resource, maybe that's saying that's the youngest teacher there. And that's kind of their way of saying, well, you're new, you're fresh meat, you do it yourself. You have
Does
to
that happen?
work hard. It has happened, yeah.
Okay, just asking, because maths is a little bit different.
Yeah,
sometimes the textbook hasn't changed in a million years for you guys.
The difference with maths is it's question and theory based. So the resources are there, and then you build your knowledge. And then the younger teachers ask the more senior teachers for that knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's not so much resource-based, it's knowledge and experience-based.
Yeah.
And even when with resources in maths, I've noticed the 2 departments I've worked in, it's assumed it's shared.
Yeah.
There's no holding back.
Yeah.
Like you cannot hold back. If you got a resource in maths, it's just assumed it's shared.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm a bit with Luke on this one in relation to the sharing of resources. I believe in a happy medium. Like there are things that, yep, I work at this school and they expect me to make this stuff. So, your assessment tasks, your programs, they give you that time too. But then sometimes you put hours at home into making amazing resources, and this is a thing in teaching as well, that once you share your resource, you share it with someone, then they share it with someone else. And then it goes into the ether and then you've lost all authorship. And I'm against that. Like I don't like that, because I think you should be recognized for your hard work. And this is one of the reasons I've got a YouTube channel, because at least, yes, my YouTube stuff's all shared public, that's fine. But my name's attached to it.
Yep.
But isn't it, if you've got a resource, you're an expert at that resource.
Well, you are, but sometimes you're becoming an expert.
Yes.
In Luke's case, he is,
Yeah, fair enough.
And sometimes that's the motivation. I'm happy to share as long as it gets tied to me, and that comes a bit too, because you do want that professional growth, because if you get that, you'll create more.
Yeah.
But then at some point, you do want to be also, for your students' sake, giving them an edge.
Because what I found, I'm very experienced at teaching, but new in an actual school environment. When I share my resource, I just assume it's all shared.
Yeah.
So I'll give you what resource you want, but then I assume you replicate that back if you've
will
got a
get
resource.
true.
And now if it doesn't happen, I'd ask you directly.
Yeah.
Like straight up, I'll be like, look, it's like helping you with something.
Yeah.
And then asking help back, you don't get it back. And then straight away, it's conflict. Okay, is there a problem here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? How's this working out? I've actually shared all my resources. I'm here to do this. Can we resolve this?
No one's going to say no to you.
It wasn't that. No, it wasn't in that intimidating way. It was the fact that, well, I've shared all my resources, and I did. I've got a lot of resources. I've got 30 years of doing that. So anytime someone ever asked, here it is. Okay, how can I help you? Okay, try it this way. See how your approach is. And I remember doing it with the younger teachers at the school we worked at. But then when there's resources, it's almost assumed that it's not assumed. It's demanded. It has to be shared.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can hold that back. If you hold it back, I think everyone else around will just isolate you.
Yeah.
And you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble very quick.
That's what I mean. Like, there's got to be a happy medium.
Happy medium. Yeah, but sometimes, but that's maths. So other things can be different.
Yeah, because like even then, like in the context of sharing someone that you'd share with and would share back, we've gone off on a complete tangent.
No, it's relevant. But it's a relevant thing because a new young teacher comes in with all these university experience.
Yeah.
Now, in their courses, you could have stuff that, teachers that have been in the profession 10, 15 years can learn.
Yeah.
So it's something of, it's up to the teachers that are more experienced to create that culture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a young teacher stepping into a classroom. They're new.
Yeah.
So what is the culture of the place, of the department that you're creating?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they can't change the culture. They fit into what is there already.
Yeah.
So it's up to the more experienced teachers to share their resources.
Yeah, and kind of set that culture.
And you set that culture. And now, as a more experienced teacher, you're sharing your resources. You're helping out to a point. And if this younger teachers got the resources, they know it's expected to be shared.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's the betterment of the students.
Yeah.
It was just a interesting thing with that because maths does work differently. Maths, you can have all the resources you want. You have to know how to do the questions.
Yeah.
So it's always top asked.
Yeah.
So there's no holding on to the resources because we all have them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, I agree. When they set that culture up, what I was going to say before is, sometimes these teachers that you share with, like they've got a lot of resources too, but really they don't make anything. All they do is kind of funnel resources, and then you start seeing other schools' names on assessment tasks and things like that.
Oh, okay. So,
and that's what I'm saying. And then you're like, maybe I won't share the resource with them because I have no idea where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
Oh, you see your resource end up in other schools.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. So then it starts seeping out and kind of that's their currency in trading between it. So
they put their name on it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. The authorship gets lost.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating
okay.
part, you know. And, you know, educators should be proud of the resources they make, and authorship should come back to them. I'm big on that.
And that's
Yeah,
where
that's
technology has
different.
come in. You got like teacher pay teacher, certain websites where you get paid for the resources you make.
Yeah.
And like I know with me and my uni mates, like we have a shared Google Drive, and we just, because we're English and history, so we just chuck our stuff in there.
Yeah.
So everyone has it, and like it's but we never like it. We know if we ask, they're like, oh, it's just in the drive, and like we're all happy to share because we all put that in. So that's, and then you got like on Facebook there's an English Teachers Association like page, and you know that some like people ask for resources there, and you can grab it too. But yeah, like I think the biggest thing for a up and coming teacher is if you make something, just chuck your name on it, like literally on it, not just like, because even if you share it on Google Drive, like it will say it's there
as
originally you, but you know then they make a copy, and then anyone's
gone.
So
How do you put your name on it? Do you actually,
or you can put your name, you literally type your name onto it, but obviously they can backspace it. They can backspace it.
But
as
you
well,
can
so
still
like,
just copy paste.
you
Take
can.
it out.
Yeah.
It's still.
So-
I mean, if you really.
Yeah, and that's why then obviously like when you share it, you put like, you don't let them be like editor or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to be like that, but
Snip and paste.
yeah.
There's
I mean,
always a way.
essentially everything that's created now is a copy of an original resource, so nothing's really original.
Yeah, but
technically,
but you're putting a twist on it,
Yeah.
and like I believe, you know, creating your own resources makes you a better teacher.
Does it create tension in the classroom? If it, like, I'm asking because I know English is heavily resource based from what I'm gathering.
It depends. Like I've worked with some lovely teachers who, you know, my first year they're like, okay, here's a booklet on this text that we're teaching. Here's another one. Here's this. I was like, oh sweet. So then, you know, I'd always share stuff, you know, and I'm always like, okay, I'm going to share it to the whole team. And if it's just one person sharing, I'll share it to them because they've always given me stuff. But then you know, some teachers just like working with each other, you know, like maybe I just like working with Chris, so he sends me stuff, I send him stuff, and then our two classes have it. But then, you know, some other teachers in the same subject might be like, oh, why aren't we getting that? And it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, I guess now we have a conversation. But that's when, you know, your head of department just makes a rule, like, you know, when you're making programs, that okay, if you're going to make a resource, you have to drop it in the drive there, so then everyone can have it.
So it's important to know as a young teacher stepping in, like, especially thank you for that, because it's one of those things where what I'm gathering creates tension.
Yeah. Oh, look, it can.
And to be careful.
Yeah.
You know?
It can, and I'm obviously come from an area of experience where I've seen it too. You know, even sometimes like a resource that you've spent so long making, and you've used it over 10 weeks with your class, and then you give it to a teacher and they do it in half an hour. They're like, oh yeah, we used it. It was great. You know, and like, you know, even that's sometimes frustrating. Well, you know, I just gave you everything I had, and you know, you haven't even used it effectively.
Oh yeah, I've given, for example, there's been math teachers where they ask me for my resource, I give it to them, and they don't use it.
Yeah.
Well, you don't understand it deeply enough to use it.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, and it's just one of those things where, I mean, if you've created the resource, you're an expert at it.
Yeah.
Only you can deliver that resource. No one else can.
Yeah.
So even if given it to someone else, they won't see the insight that you've done creating it.
Yeah.
So it's another thing to be careful of, getting resources off someone.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point too. Okay, because it does interacting with it does give you a deeper understanding. Of what's going on,
absolutely.
which is what I encourage teachers making resources and that. And like I said, some things you've got to share, things related to programs, assessment tasks, almost everything in your job description.
That's a whole podcast topic.
Yeah.
We can look at resources.
It's nearly the new name of this.
Yeah, that's right. So what's so that's okay on the negative. What about a real positive? Like, did you have any mentors or?
Oh yeah.
What did you?
Yeah, obviously my English teacher who hired me, he was the head of department. He was my mentor, and you know, like, so I'd share him. He shared me his resources, and he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, this is unreal." He was like, and he didn't like that answer. He wanted me to kind of fight with him. No, this is rubbish, you know, like what's there's something wrong with it. And I was like, okay. So then I would make a resource, give it to him. He's like, yeah, okay, this is rubbish. That's good. But this is rubbish. And I'm like, okay. So then, but you don't take it to heart because it's not personal attack.
I think from what you're saying, he wanted a colleague, not a student anymore.
Yeah.
So that can be, I mean, if he did teach you, and in your mind, it still takes that little bit of, you know, he was my teacher.
Yeah.
Now I know even 35 years later, my extension to math, 4-year math, still makes me nervous when I bump into her in Coles. I don't know, it's just one of those things.
She's trying to scalp you still, isn't she? If she finds out you're working.
I'm not working. Okay, no, she's still, it's that teacher-student relationship.
Yeah.
Even though the years walk past, and this teacher, she taught myself and my wife, we bump into each other in Coles now. We're married with children, etc. There's still that element of it was my teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it, because you had the privilege of going back and actually working with the teacher that inspired you to become an English teacher, then becomes your boss. At what point in your mind did it become comfortable where you went, okay, here's my colleague?
I think just sharing the resources and, like he's like giving me the feedback, because that, increases your pedagogy and everything like that. And that's what you want to be, a better teacher. And then when I think the biggest pat on the back was when he loves his data. So when we go through the HSC data, I
think I know you're talking about.
Yeah, when we go through the English data, and then he was like, "Oh, your class did really well, this and that." And I was like, "Okay, all right, he likes me now. Like now, now I'm a colleague." But it was more just that.
I don't think he likes you. He's just telling you the truth.
You heard him to say it.
But no, just kidding.
But yeah, I think when he realized, I guess that I could just do it on my own. I think, and then that's, I guess, when he saw me as a colleague.
That's when you feel, okay, I've got his respect. I'm his colleague now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Very impressed.
It's good he went over that data with you, because we've spoken before with people about how HSC is so focused on band sixes, but then when you actually look at data and see how you got growth out of students and all that, that's also a very rewarding part of the job, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that was the biggest thing, because like my HSC class didn't get a band six.
Yeah.
There was some high band fives, but there was no band sixes. Yeah. But it was the learning growth.
Yeah.
My class had the biggest learning growth, and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
So when he explained it, I was like, all right. And that really kind of ticked a few boxes in my head. I'm like, okay, so the HSC, at least for me personally, it's not really about the band sixes. Yes, that's nice and it looks nice on the paper, but having a kid who maybe didn't like English and now he loves it, and then he started out like a learning growth of this, but now he smashed it in the HSC. It's like, all right, that's what I'm here for.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And and even for him as your mentor to explain that to you, the metrics of it, because I'm guessing this would have been standard English.
Yeah.
And do you know the percentage off the top of your head, how many band sixes that gets?
So they only got 99 last year?
Yeah, out of
all of New South Wales.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very hard.
I know it's less than 1%. I'm not sure if it's less than 0.5%. That's what I'm just trying to calculate in my head. But it is. So, the reward isn't in the band sixes. Yeah, it's that growth data. No, that's excellent.
No, well done.
Well, look, on that same topic of English, you told us why, what led you to English. What makes teaching English great?
I think that you can just kind of adapt any text that you're doing and kind of relate it to life that's happening around. That's what I try to do all the time, especially like I work at an all-boys school, and boys don't like imaginative writing, creative writing.
Yeah.
So, when we get into that, I'm like, okay, boys, what'd you do on the weekend? All right, I went fishing with my dad. All right, that's great. Let's use that as a prompt for a story, okay? What happened on the boat? Oh, we went fast. All right, let's build that with a bit of sensory imagery, what was it? What it sounded like, did the water whack you on the face? Did the fish smell, all that stuff? And then they're like, oh, okay. Then they start building a little story, and then they realize, I've got a story, They don't have to write, they scored the winning goal in the Champions League final or something like that anymore. They can just relate to real life. And especially like with the senior classes, like 11 and 12, when they have to have a narrative more or less prepared, I always go back to, because so standard English are doing human text and human experiences, so it's about life and the human condition. So I'm always like, just relate to something that you're doing at home. Maybe cooking with your abuela, your abuelo, making a go-kart with your dad, or you're painting with your mum, or gardening with your grandparents, something like that. You can build a story from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing about English teaching. You just relate it to what's happening, what's around you. One of the intros kind of lessons I do with year 11 is we analyze a song. So every year I choose a different song.
Is it like a modern song, or like?
Oh, it's everywhere. I did like Kanye's Heartless all the way to Frank Sinatra's My Way. I always up and down. And then we obviously we deconstruct that. And then I'm like, this is like deconstructing poetry. And because then after we deconstruct the song, then the first text is poetry. So there's a nice little segue in. But before they get into that, I get them to deconstruct their own favorite song. So then they do a little presentation in class, and then they realize, this and that. And then it connects to basically what they have to do for poetry. So it's a nice little segue, and that hooks them at the beginning. Yeah. And then I've got them, and I'm like, and then I run with it. So yeah, that's why.
Nice.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, very good.
Well, then on that same note, like that's a brilliant activity. what does it feel like being in your class? So how do the interactions then happen with the students in your class? Because that's exciting. That's drawing upon, firstly, you talked about experiences, but then also things that they like as well. What's the dialogue like? What's the vibe in Mr. Rodriguez's class?
It's more colourful now. I've got more posters around, which helps, some quotes. But I think I just like everyone to have a voice, because I know when I was at school, like not every kid had a voice, and even the quiet kids always generally do have a voice, but obviously they're shy and stuff like that. So I try to get everyone to speak. Obviously, I'm aware that some people don't want to, but then there's ways around that. There's certain tools that you can use. I forgot off the top of my head, but there's some that they can answer questions anonymously online. So they'll share an answer, and then I project it on the board. So it's like, okay, that's a great answer. Whoever did that, A star for you. But yeah, just everyone having a voice is really important in my class. That's the biggest thing.
That's good. And I guess you don't know, but if that was probably more introverted students that they like that, like, do they ever say anything to you like, oh yeah, that was me, or?
I don't know. None of them really said it, but yeah, generally some of the kids are just like, all right, you actually check your emails. That's the biggest thing that makes me laugh, So I'm like, all right, yeah, I check my emails. I mean, yeah. So yeah,
it's good.
Good. And are there any particular texts that you enjoy actually covering in English?
Oh yeah, look, I like the English Standard course at the moment. So we do Billy Elliot, the film. So once the boys get their head around a straight bloke doing ballet, then we're good. But so we do that.
We've had a ballet instructor on the
before. Sure. Oh, yeah? Prima ballerina. Yeah,
there you go.
Real professional.
Yeah, I like teaching that. We do a Beautiful Mind in Year 11 course. We do Asian, Australian, contemporary poets, which is really good. And then we finish off with Curious Incident of the Dog of the Nighttime, and that's I like the novel. It's about this kid who's he's neurodiverse and he's kind of finding his way in the world. And I can relate to it a little bit, but yeah, all the boys can really relate to it to a degree. But yeah, a lot of the texts I generally enjoy that we teach. And with the new curriculum coming around, we've been able to get rid of some of the texts that I don't like, which is nice.
Good.
Just outdated stuff, we're in 2024, there's certain texts that the boys don't get anymore.
Yeah.
Like I remember at another school that I was at, we were still watching Grease, and the demographic of the school was, Asians, and, the middle and people from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And they don't care about Greece.
Yeah.
They don't care about John Travolta. There's no relation to it.
They don't believe Greece is the word.
Yeah,
they don't even know the songs.
No. But
try Greece 2 with them.
I didn't know that existed. But
good movie, very good. Whole podcast on that one.
I have to watch it.
But trying to teach kids Greece, that's hard.
Yeah.
So certain texts have been a bit outdated, so we're fixing them up, which is really good, and it's fun I like programming and doing stuff like that. So. It's good fun.
Yeah. Well, then on that same note then, because you said all these changes are happening, then is there any text that you're passionate about that you wish could be brought to it, or you already do through analogy, kind of bring it to your classes?
I feel like every teacher tries to bring in their own little thing, but because we're so dictated by what we can, it's hard. The only times I'll do is like maybe little short stories that maybe I can kind of put in there, especially at least for the like year 11 and 12s. Like when we're doing like imaginative writing or discursive writing, I'll find one that kind of they can relate to a bit more, and I embed it in. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's excellent.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. And for yourself, being a literary person, any book or novel in particular that kind of incited you?
I loved reading when I was younger. Like my parents never had an issue with me reading. Like I would read. When I was really young, I read the Tashi series, Captain Underpants, all that stuff. Then when I was in high school, I read my favorite author is Matthew Riley. He's an Australian author. He owns a DeLorean, which is very cool.
Oh wow!
And I haven't read all of his books, but I'm getting through it slowly. But in high school, I read a good majority of them, and then I saw him at he did a little book signing talk at the Hayden Orpheum in, I think it's Mossman or somewhere out there.
They put good movies on there too. They do a lot of retro stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Hence the DeLorean.
Yeah. And he had his DeLorean parked outside. I got a photo with it. But yeah, so he'd be my favorite author. It's kind of like Indiana Jones in a novel.
Yeah.
But yeah, and my favorite book from him is Ice Station. It's about these Marines who get sent to Antarctica to discover something, and then I think the Russians come in and they're doing something a bit sketchy, and then I think someone else is there, and then there's just a bit of a mystery and intrigue that goes on. But I don't want to give it away.
It's a good story.
Good story.
That's awesome. I was going to then go off, like, because we've been speaking about you as coming in, not just as a teacher, but as specifically as an English teacher. What are the challenges that have come with that? Because even I can admit, maybe Rob will protest as a maths teacher, there's a little bit more expected of English teachers and what they do. Is there anything you'd like to speak to that about?
Yeah, well, look, like when whatever year group it is, 7 to 12, well, obviously we give them homework, but then on top of that homework, we give them, like, let's say they have to create a body paragraph. And, you've got 30 kids in the class. So then you have to mark that for year 7. And then you do that again for your year 8 class. And you do that also for your year 9 class. And then maybe your year 10 and obviously your year 12s. So then, all that quick math added up, that's a lot of things that you have to mark.
It's a lot of marking.
Yep. And on top of that, you've still got to teach them the next day and do all this and, have your own life after school. So that was a big thing on kind of being able to manage.
And unlike maths too, it's not like correct or incorrect. It's very interpretive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, picking on maths now.
It's bash maths today.
So become a maths teacher. You will not suffer like this.
But and like even on top of that, English has debating as well. So that's a big task that you have to do after school. Like I know we'd be at school from you start the day at 7 or whatever, but you won't get home till sometimes 9 o'clock, depending on where you have to go for debating. And then the next day you might have I often will, because I would always coach a sporting team on a Thursday, and when debating would be on a Wednesday, so I'd debate till get home at 9 o'clock, and then next morning I'd be up having to coach the kids, do actual training before school at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, and then go about my day. So a bit draining in that regard. But yeah, the marking is a punish. But you're able to manage it. You just have to figure out a way.
The other one that I'll mention that I know of, and it does relate to maths, this one too. Usually parent-teacher night, they can sometimes be selective with which teachers they want to see, but always the top 2 on the hit list. Maths
and English, absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, and rightly so. The parents they're at least for me, they're the 2 most fundamental subjects at a school, and obviously the parents care a lot about it. And rightly so. Like it at least English, it builds everything. You need English in history. You need English to read the math questions. So it's very, very important. Having parents, knowing what the kids are doing is very important as well. And some of the parents just calling them and telling them, oh, your kid, he did really well in his task. He got 14 out of 20. He gave me all these paras to mark, and I marked him and used the feedback, and he did really well. And and then they're like, oh, that's great. I'm going to let him know. And then it just builds a bit of a rapport with the parents like that, and
it does wonders for the kid too. Yeah.
100%. Then they actually start maybe working a bit more harder in class. Maybe they do more homework at home. Anything like that, I'll take.
Inspires them.
Yeah. And then the parents are like, oh, this teacher actually cares. So we're going to push the kid to actually do more work in the class, or do the work in the class. So it helps.
Yeah, positive reinforcement.
Absolutely.
It's the best way. Just if you're going to get the best out of people, focus on the positive.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent.
No, it's good. So in your case, now you're a proficient teacher. Now what? So where do you hope? Like, are you hoping to go into curriculum, well-being? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? What would you hope to say, not achieve, but kind of move into?
Because you're definitely making some very good moves, especially the amount of involvement you already said with the extracurricular with English and
because it's
sporting
definitely
teams.
at a point. Well, you're passionate, you enjoy teaching, you tick all the boxes as a teacher. So where to now?
Yeah, well, I always, when I was at uni, I always wanted to be like a wellbeing coordinator. That was always my biggest thing, and I'm still open to that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. But
next wellbeing coordinator right here.
But like at the moment, like I do like the curriculum side of things, and at my school at the moment, the head of department, she's gone on holidays, well deserved. So the assistant has gone up to head, and I'm acting assistant for a few weeks.
Oh, well done!
Congrats!
Yeah, so it's good. So now I get to see the other side of things, and give me a bit of experience in that role, and see if I like it. But I'm very organized and a bit OCD, so it kind of helps. But yeah, curriculum, well-being, something like that would be good. I feel like I'm going to be looking into doing my master's next year, just to be able to be promoted, so I don't miss out on opportunities.
What actual masters is it?
I needed to research in that. I need to talk to.
So do you actually, for English, do you need a master's to be promoted to say head teacher? Or
I don't believe so. I know.
What advantage does it give you?
Well, the masters is more so like I believe like if you're going to be AP. I know wellbeing coordinator. I mean, I think technically you need, at least at a Catholic school, you need an RE certificate. So this master's covers that. Like it'll give you the master's and also gives you the RE certificate. So then you can obviously be wellbeing. But then with that master's, I can become AP, so assistant principal. And then I think principal you need to do something extra. But I know at least I can go for that if presented. But obviously it's still very early days.
It's something. Honestly, it's not being arrogant. You prepare for it.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, you don't want to be say 10 years later go, I should have done this.
100%.
Even if you're not. Tick all your boxes. Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to go for it. Yeah. And that's exactly right. I don't want to miss out on an opportunity, especially if there's one at the school I'm at, because I like where I work and I like to stay there. So if there's an opportunity, I'd like to stay there and take it. And if I don't have the masters and that's the only thing holding me back, I'll be like, okay, that's annoying.
My assistant principals actually gave me that advice, and the masters they told me to do was at Australian Catholic University, the masters in educational leadership. And I think with that one, you obviously got the leadership stuff, but then you can also tick off some of the RE units through that university too. Yeah. I think that's the one that works in the system, but I'm about 8 years removed from it too, so I'm sure things have changed as well.
Did you do it as well? Or?
Yeah, I did it. I did do that master's. So that's I've done it, and I found it really good. Okay, it has helped, and I think that helped me get to the point where I am right now too, and even supported me in doing the high levels of accreditation too, because I've got a master's under the belt as well. So you can also leverage it in that direction as well. Just in kind of build up that credit.
Yeah, on your CV.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it is. Yeah, that's a very good plan to have at the moment too. That's good that you're focusing on it that way. What are some strategies in relation to interacting with your students that you've used to build rapport? Because you have highlighted, you've got a bit of that young, cool teacher presence, but also trying to establish yourself as a professional too. What kind of strategies are you using for rapport?
I think I feel it's different with every year group.
Yeah, good, and it is. Yeah, year 7, year 12 are not the same.
Yeah, and you definitely need to see who's in the class as well and kind of what's going on. Like I know with year 7s, they're still just coming out of that like primary school kind of age and the rules and all that.
Imagine being a primary school teacher.
I couldn't do it.
For you, we're going to get one of you on.
You're doing God's work.
The poor primary school teachers.
But yeah, so you definitely have to talk a certain way. Like I can't be as stern as maybe I would to like year 9 or year 10 to them.
Tears.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes tears are good, but generally you gotta act a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I feel like I'm just adaptable to each year group. And the kind of and what at least what I found is like with year 10 especially, with them you definitely gotta, I call it the boring work. So my English classes with year 10 are very boring. I don't enjoy what I do, but I have to do it because it's the only way it will work with them. Yeah. Because if I want to do really interactive group work, it's an absolute shambles.
Yeah, they're not mature enough.
They're not mature enough. So like I have to do the boring, copy this down, write this down. Here's a booklet with no laptops, this and that.
Structure.
Exactly. Yeah, so with year 10, it's more structured. Year 11 and 12, I give them a bit more rope because they're kind of still finding their feet. But I'm still, when they get to year 12, definitely I'm like, all right, now we're in the end game and we got to kind of pull up our socks and do the work, do the homework, do this and do that. So I'm really on their back and, I'm calling their parents to make sure that they do stuff. But yeah, it's just, I think it's being adaptable to each class and every class might have a character or a few. There's different, differentiation. You might have, the top class, so then you have to do things a different way. And you have to give them extra homework or, really probe them. And like, I like to, with that class, I like to let them talk more than me, because I want to hear what they have to say. I don't want to be the one telling them. That's more like what I do with a year 7 class, because they're just coming up, they don't know much. But with the top class, okay, what do you have to say? And
they respect that maturity, that more open dialogue.
Yeah, like a little thing I love doing with year 7 classes is I'll pick one kid, and if I have to like write something on the board, he will write it for me. Yeah. So then he has the power. And then they love that. So then everyone will have a go. So doing little things like that, really boost them up, and then they get some confidence in the class. Then they will share an answer, and that's what we all want. So yeah, again, back to the voice. Like the kids need a voice.
Absolutely, no, it's good.
That's excellent. Well, then, so you've done so much already. Like you're involved in so many things. when times were tough, what supports really helped you?
Yeah, well, definitely talking to my mentor helped out if I was struggling. You know, I remember early days I had a year 8 class and they were challenging, and I was like, I don't know, mate, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like I should put the whole class on detention. They're killing me.
So it was a classroom management thing.
Yeah, because like, you know, I had a kid throwing an apple across the room. I had another kid, you know, throwing a bag out the window. Like, it was just like things were happening, and I'm like, there's so many fires going on. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And then he's like, okay, just grab the diary, put a note in the diary. If you do that 3 times, put them on detention. Call home. And then if that doesn't happen, then we'll suspend them and this and that. So then I just did that. And then slowly enough, they stopped doing things because they didn't like getting detentions. And then it made my life much better. And then also certain activities I wouldn't do anymore. So it was more structured. That definitely helped. But yeah, definitely like you just got to, at least at an all boys school, I found that you got to be on their backs right from the get-go. No leniency unless they have a note that says something and it's an actual note written by their parents, not themselves or their mate.
Even then I've been there.
Rob's got a whole story on that he's told us about before.
Just kidding. Don't do that.
But yeah.
That's our kryptonite, aren't they?
Yeah. But yeah, definitely be on their back straight away, and then it just helps you in the long run, because if you give them a bit of leniency early on, then they're just going to run with it for the rest of the term. And you're with that class the whole year.
Yeah.
So you really got to think about your well-being.
I think that was my biggest shock coming in from a boys' school to a co-ed school. I had that mentality stepping into a co-ed school. I didn't realize one of the girls had anxiety.
No.
And I think I may have a couple of boys were playing up, so I did the all boys thing. It overwhelmed the girl with anxiety.
She's still in your class?
Yeah, she's still in the class, and I've got to tone things down. It's a new learning curve. Okay, I'm not at an all-boys school now.
Yeah.
Things move differently with girls and boys.
But it's not even just that.
Yeah. Very interesting.
It can sometimes actually just be different communities as well, and
absolutely.
And different just school systems together as well. Like, it's funny, that is a big eye-opener too, that just how walking to a different classroom in a different school, you have to be a different version of you, almost, or at least adapt to that culture.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, like you build your experience up in one sort of culture.
Yeah.
And then it transfers over to another one, and then you realize, okay, this did not go the way I intended it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, boys, I think teaching, if you're a male, boys schools, it would be the preferred. Because you can really move in with your masculinity, especially if you're, like you said, one of those teachers that's more stern. It's natural in your character to have that upright, have that seriousness about you. Yeah, definitely boys' schools just to tone your craft in.
Yeah, and it's a good safe start.
Yeah,
it's a good
safe start, and then move on into a co-ed.
Because it is still good to see strong male role models in all girls schools and co-ed schools too, and all that, and vice versa too. For in the all boys schools, they have good female strong role models too. We've said it before too. Sometimes it's good to start in the type of system you come from. Yeah, you know, which is the same for both you and me. Yeah. You know, but that kind of helps you. You start with a comfortable environment, and then you can move a bit more flexibly.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good.
But I was fortunate. Like my first prac, I went to an all girls school, so that was like, I remember I think it was a year 9 like top class. And I was like, they were getting a bit loud. They were a good class. I was a bit loud. I was like, hey guys, we need to turn it down. And then one of the girls after class, she's like, so can you not call us guys? I was like, oh wow. And she was like, can you call us, you know, girls or you know, year 9? And I was like, okay, sorry, like no worries. I'll take that in consideration. And then so next time, year 9 girls, please. I didn't know. You know, but it was good that she told me just after class. She just, you know, she pulled me aside. So this can you say like this? I'm like, okay, no worries. And then when I went to a co-ed school, you know, it was different. You got to learn, you know, certain things, and you know, because it's the mix. So yeah, what happened with you? You know, similar things. You maybe can't raise your voice as high as maybe you would.
Yeah, you can't make the room tense like you can in a boys' room.
Well, like with some boys, you can really. That was a bit. With some boys, you can really raise your voice. Yeah, with some of the boys you can really raise your voice, and you know they're okay. But sometimes with the girls, it is overwhelming. So you gotta work on that. So generally at the co-ed school, I would pull the boy outside of class and then spray him, and then not that no one hears it, but you know it's not just like And they don't feel like they're getting targeted. But the same thing happens at as well. There's certain boys who everyone has anxiety, so and everyone gets overwhelmed. So again, that's another thing. You just got to know your class as well and know the kids in the class and what their background's like, so that you can avoid that or be able to work around that. But yeah, definitely as a first year teacher out, working at a school that is going to be a challenge is you should do that. 100% you should do that because it'll take you out of your comfort zone. You might not like teaching, but also you're going to learn a lot. 100% you'll learn a lot. And then you realize, I don't want to work at that school, I want to work at another school. And that's very important.
Which, that is part of the teaching journey
Experience is king. Yeah.
It's funny what you said about the boys too, because in teaching your boys, you can give them the biggest spray in the world. Like completely go in for them. Next day, or you see them out in the street. Oh, hey, sir.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no grudges.
It's good. Thank heavens for that in some situations. Look, jumping back to English, have you started developing a criteria in your mind on what makes a successful English teacher?
Yes, I think you got to one, be able to accept criticism from the kids and from your colleagues, because the kids will you might sometimes I misspell things, It happens.
And you're an English teacher.
And I'm English teacher, so obviously I'm going to
That's
culprit.
worse than me.
Yeah,
I got spell check.
or they're like, so we can't read your handwriting, So then now I type. So then I never have that. But that's one thing. You need to be able to accept criticism.
The scrutiny.
Yeah. Two, you gotta just accept the workload. That's what it is at English. If you're going into it thinking it's going to be like math, it's not going to be like math.
So the way you look at primary school, we look at English. It's like, why?
Yeah. No.
It's important. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy my books and the literature. I'm very grateful to have English teachers.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, no. I think part of the bargaining agreement should be overtime pay in the essay, in the marking.
Yes, that's a podcast for another time.
You're stirring the pot now.
In all honesty, you're doing so much marking, you're taking so much work home. The government can create a system where, they can have a standard system of what it takes to mark an essay, give you 20 minutes of overtime, and then you're marking all these essays, log them into the system and get paid. I mean, you could do that for all subjects.
Yeah, well, that's it, because that's the first thing the other subjects will say. Well, they do.
No, but in all honesty, in marking the extension to maths papers,
that takes you forever.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And then with maths, you're skinned alive in front of the classroom if you don't know your content.
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity.
There's a two-edged sword. I mean, that's why it's hard to find an extension one, even sometimes advanced maths teachers, because nobody wants to do it, because the slight mishap that you don't know your work, kids lose all the respect for you.
It's not even just them too, because even parents come in on the back.
Everything.
Very quickly.
It's so in terms of math, sure, setting the exam is very difficult. Marking the exam can be easy, but then every day in the class, you have to be prepared, you have to be ready, and you have to be able to answer the questions, not just to get the answer at the back of the book. I mean, the answer is just at the back of the book. Now, you got to get to that answer on the board in a way that the students understand. So it's never easy. And even then, with, coming back to English, well, you have to have the English and the language.
Yeah.
And I said that to my extension to maths kids. I go, extension 2, what they used to call 4-unit mathematics, will get you a great job. I go to them, you know what advanced English will make you? The boss. And they're all like, what? Yeah. Advanced English will make you the boss.
They can talk the talk then, eh?
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, someone needs to be the boss in these, high-performing STEM jobs.
Yeah.
Who is the boss in the high-performing STEM jobs? Who gets the promotion to management?
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Once again, how they go hand in hand. And look, it's true, eh? Like both your departments are the most scrutinized too. Like, and I speak from the wellbeing aspect where I come to when parents are concerned. They're more extra concerned about those teachers that they have too, and that's a pressure in itself, especially as a young teacher.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I didn't realize it initially because they gave me a year 11 standard English class, and then I remember one of the other teachers pulling me aside. He's like, "You have pressure, like because I went to uni with his daughter, and she didn't have a class straight off the bat for senior." And he's like, you have pressure. She doesn't. And I was like, why? He's like, well, you have a HC class. You know, they're going to go into HC course. So you're impacting them getting into uni. I was like, oh, crap. Like, there's a lot of pressure
Okay,
there.
now
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is. And then the whole parent-teacher interviews with parents, you know, then, you know, I had these interviews with these parents and they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, who are you? I've never seen you before.
Just your age would be a panic.
Yeah, so
Like,
that's why
what
I
does
had
he
to
know?
grow this beard that I'm growing. So I look a bit older.
Grace through the hair. You know,
Oh, no,
quicker than
it
just
doesn't make a difference. I mean,
Yeah.
so long as you're confident in what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know when I sat with my daughter with, you know, the teachers,
Yeah.
and we had a young maths teacher that was teaching my daughter, and he knew his stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew straight away. The questions I asked, he answered straight. He knew his content.
Yeah.
And you go, great, respect.
And that's really why they are going intense. They want to see that exactly, and then that reassures them once they get to know you too. Well, with all that pressure talk, and you have touched on this before because you mentioned your mentor told you. How do you manage all this in like obviously lesson planning and all that, but then ensure that you got your personal life and you're managing your well-being? How have you been going about that?
Yeah, well, definitely. Like trying to switch off is the biggest thing. Like generally, like I get to work earlier so I can do a lot, so then I don't have to stay back.
That's a good
school.
practice.
And then generally, you know, I try to get out of school, you know, 3:34 around that time, you know, when schools don't stop. But generally I'm out by then. And then, you know, I get home. I try not to look at my phone or emails. I have like, you know, the notifications off and stuff like that. And, you know, I go about my day, you know, I have a snack, I walk the dog, talk to my parents, you know, go to the gym, do whatever, like whatever sport I'm training for, anything like that. And then after dinner, after I've showered, then I'll check my emails. And then, you know, kids are emailing me paragraphs and then I'll get on top of that.
You actually mark the paragraphs when they email you that night.
Yes, generally, yeah.
Wow, because there's a big push
Yeah.
right now about, you know, when
switching
teachers
off.
switch
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
Well, and rightly so. Like I shouldn't be, but sometimes I just can't help myself.
Yeah.
Like, and that's another like thing on the criteria. Like I feel like you have to be passionate about what you do.
Well, 100%. That's about what I was going to say. It's a labor of passion.
Yeah.
But then we should be paid for that passion too.
Well,
you know?
yeah. But I mean, that's not,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's me doing it. You know, I'm not forced to do it. I just choose to.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I remember being at uni and having an idea for an essay and waking up and just writing it down somewhere. So then the next morning I will type it up, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes these kids will send me an email, you know, 10:30. And then I'm like, okay, I'll look at it now. And then, you know, but sometimes like I'll look at it in the morning. You know?
Yeah.
I'll be better switched on in the morning. So there's a fine line. But yeah, generally, just doing stuff like that. And generally, like, you know, Friday to Saturday to Sunday morning, I won't check anything to do with work.
Good.
Just to have, you know, a few hours of just switch off. But then Sundays when I go back into it, you know, I go over all the emails. Normally in like the school holidays, the first week I'll try not to do anything for work, but the second week I will. But this school holidays just passed was obviously HSC prep and all that. So we had to go in and, you know, kids were sending me stuff, which was really good. You know, I wanted them to. So marking all their stuff. So it was a different type of holiday. So the teachers, we get a lot of holidays, but we still have to do stuff.
Holidays.
They're not holidays at all.
No,
they're not holidays at all.
To hear this stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
the work does
absolutely.
come. We are passionate and we are working at these times too, because it was interesting. My wife was on social media the other day and someone posted that, you know, the teacher wage, the two of them announced they're making $130,000 a year, which is great. And then the amount of anger that came from others in the community, you know, in saying that wage in relation to, you get 12 weeks off a year and, you know, the hours you work a day. But no, that's just teaching time, like in front of the class. Yeah, the programming and all that happens in the holidays. The marking happens after school. So it's great you raised that with our audience too, because, we are professionals.
But when they look at it, you've been to uni 5 years.
Yeah.
$130,000 a year.
Yeah.
When you look at what your students in 10 years' time will be earning,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get rich being a teacher.
And that's a funny aspect.
It's the truth. It's reality.
Yeah.
Now, you can get all this criticism and saying, but this, that. But you go, wait a second. Put it into perspective into the real world.
Yeah.
You know, and line that up with the real world. This is the one thing with the criticism where if I had to always defend it, when they go, but you get your holidays. And then I turn around and go, what do you do for work?
Yeah.
Okay, so how much do you get paid? Disclose it. And then they go quiet. And
we share the holidays with their children.
You
know, but
Absolutely.
like my mentor, he told me, like, you know, teaching, if you're going into teaching, it's not because of money.
No.
You know, if you're going in for the money, you're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
It's a person's a natural born teacher. And like you said, you could have done law. you're
Yeah.
smart enough to do law, you could be earning twice the paycheck. But there's something innate inside you to teach
Yeah.
that it almost doesn't feel like a job, but then you're working really hard.
Yeah.
That's where the passion comes.
Yeah. Another aspect to why I became a teacher was because I feel like it'd give me a better lifestyle in terms of like work, home, and just life. Like I'd be able to, eventually when I want to have a family, I can see them after school.
Yeah.
I have my weekends to spend with my family, stuff like that. I have the holidays to spend with my family. So that was a big selling point for me as well when I was tossing things up, when I went through my existential crisis at the ripe age of 22.
But that is a good highlight because not all benefits are financial, are they?
No.
And that's the thing. We shouldn't talk in money and in that because, it is about passion. It is about lifestyle too. But it's good that you highlighted to how much hard work you are doing and outside of that time too, which is obviously a great thing to highlight about our industry there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole point of the podcast is to attract people into the teaching profession, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, we're always going to be honest about it.
Yeah, and it's good to realize that, at certain times in the year, there is a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
But then at other times in the year, you do get your break.
Yeah. That's it. It does come, doesn't it?
Well, one of my ex-students from my first HSC cohort, he's now becoming a PE teacher.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
He was inspired by his PE teacher, not me. But it's nice that he's becoming a teacher, which is nice. He sent me a few
that's
emails
good.
for some advice.
So you
it's
can end
good.
up colleagues.
Yeah, well, he wants to come back, so that'd be interesting.
No, that'd be good. Really, keep them coming.
Yeah.
Well, in that context too, I was going to ask it from the point of you being a proficient teacher now. What would you say to yourself when you got out? But this could be now one of your students, coming back as a teacher. What advice would you give at your point now as a proficient teacher to someone fresh out of uni about to start full time that would have helped you?
I think the biggest one I'd say is get a job as like a teacher's aide or SLSO at a school, because then you can definitely see the behind the scenes and just see how the teaching works. Like I feel that's almost like teaching should become almost like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And if you can do it that way, it kind of is, because you get to sit in the classroom and you get to help the kids and you get to see how teachers work. And, you might build a rapport with that teacher, and then he or she might send you resources or, kind of take you under their wing and then, help you out for when you actually do take on that education degree. That's the biggest thing I think I would give myself, because I didn't, like when I was at uni, I did all odd jobs. Like I worked at the airport, I coached tennis, everything like that. So doing something in your field would be great. And I think if you're able to do it maybe at a bit of an older age, I think that'd be a bit better. Yeah. Because I feel like when you're straight out, you're maybe a bit too fresh, a bit too raw. I think you need to live life a little bit, get a few human experiences under your belt.
That's for any profession.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But I feel more so for teaching, because like you don't, not that you don't know anything, but I feel like you need to do stuff. So you have some stuff to kind of say when you're in the classroom that you kind of bounce off. Because when you're fresh out of uni, you're just relating on what you did at uni, I work there. I haven't had all these hills to climb and all that. So
we've actually spoken about that in relation to our pathways too. You came into teaching obviously a lot more worldly and a lot more confident than I was. I was a freshie, and I had to really develop myself over time. Where you came in, you were able to come in and respect.
I mean, my experiences were completely different. Obviously, I walked in there with a level of knowledge and experience that was highly respected and highly sought after. And then having the age of when I walked in, which was 2 years ago, and having the experiences of actually teaching in the tuition center, having the martial arts schools, etc., gave me that presence in the room straight away. So you wouldn't even notice. You'd think I was there for 20 years. Yeah. Just by my mannerisms.
Oh, no one would be able to tell.
Yeah. Because to a point, maybe my banter got a bit much with the English department, but I always liked a good challenge there, and it was fun, But on the serious side, that's what I said for other professionals coming into the profession. So if you're an engineer, say, and you know what, you've had your 25 years being an engineer, you're thinking of coming back into teaching. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You give it a go. It could be something that you could spend the next 30 years of your life, in a passionate and very rewarding job. Yeah. If it's sat there in your head where you go, you know what, I've always considered it. And we had a lady at our school where she was an actual academic with a PhD in political sciences. And one thing from a humanitarian background, she wanted to be a science teacher from young.
Yeah.
So in her 40s, an actual, retrains and comes back as a science teacher. So she brings in all that experience. So, with this teacher shortage, if you are thinking of, transitioning over, definitely give it a go. It could be that if you've got an existential crisis in your 40s and 50s, this could be the way.
Which we all have. We all go through. You had a long way to go to.
Yeah. I did. I became a maths teacher in high school.
But it is true. And even on the avenue you mentioned too about the LSO as well, like a lot of schools are more picking up on that. That is becoming more common with people studying a teaching degree being able to find that. So if you are at university, inquire about LSO positions, helping out. And that stands for Learning Support Officer, and working with diverse learning departments and helping students that have needs. So, definitely look at that, because it can really support you as you transition into teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you too as well, for parents out there, English can be a battle to get their children to, want to be passionate about and to study for. What advice could you give them as well to, get their children motivated?
Yeah, look, the biggest thing is getting them to read as early as possible, I would say. My parents were lucky. I just liked reading. But at the same time, like, my dad was a really good storyteller.
Yeah.
So he would tell stories and, the transition into reading the books. So getting them to read is the biggest thing. Like every parent-teacher interview I have, it's always, what else can we do for our son? I'm like, well, you can get him to read. You can buy him a book. You can do this and that, Try your best to get him to read. I know, you can start off with, comics and anything, just an autobiography of their favorite athlete, something, get him to read. I'm not a big fan of audiobooks. I feel like you're not really listening.
Yeah.
So the physical copy is where it's at. But and also just having conversation about what they're learning about in English, we're all the way from primary school to high school, like what book are you reading, what novel, and just having that discussion over the dinner table or what have you. I think that will go a long way. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. That is excellent. Just dialogue at the table.
But then you read as well, so your kids do see you read.
Yeah.
Because this is the one thing that kids mimic you. I know if my kids are home, I unpurposefully put my books up into a library. So it was very important that my kids see the library. They see that I have read all these books. That was my interest. And I remember one thing with my daughter, it was like, oh, wow, this is actually serious. And I think I mentioned on the podcast, a bit adamant on her reading this in year 6, the Anne Frank book.
Yeah.
And when the teacher gave it to her, I go, no, take it back. Here it is from the library. Nice hard copy. Pulled it out. Here, off you go. So if you want anything you want your kids to do, you do it first. You have to do it first. I mean, you can scream and yell at your kid, read. Why aren't you reading? And then you sit on the couch, put the TV on. Yeah. So and you can scream at your kid, oh, do your homework. But they're not seeing you doing anything academic. So it's one of those things, they will model you, the parent, first. So anything you want your kid to do it first. At least engage a little bit in it first. Buy a book that your kid can see you. You don't have to read it so often, but the kid actually sees you engaged in a book or discuss the books that you enjoyed. And my daughter is predominantly more English, so welcome to that department.
That's why she's into it.
Thank you, Kate. But still, you as a parent, model what you want your kids to become. Because at the end of the day, you influence them more than us.
Yeah.
We can add fuel to the flames you create.
Yeah.
That'll be the best way I describe it as a parent. Spark those little flames in your children and let us, the teachers, just pour the petrol over it.
Yeah, that's excellent too. My wife's a strong one in the house like that. She's the reader. She's got her books, and the kids get passionate about what she wants to read. My daughter's trying to follow in her footsteps. My cupboard's all video games, so so I'm a bit weak on that. But I'm not a good example of that. Full disclosure.
I think me and Ma are about the same.
Yeah,
she's. I think I like more the English literature and history, and my wife is more very creative stories, etc. She's got that creative gene in her. Yeah. So we try and balance.
That's good. Both. From different approaches, and that develops their character in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. Well, we're up to our last question now, Rob.
Absolutely.
We have someone sitting out there that is on the fence about whether or not to become a teacher. What could you say to them to kind of go, you know what, I'm going to go for this. I want to become a teacher. What could you pass on?
Convince them. Let's
the
go.
holidays. No, look, I think
I'm marking all day.
the pilot
maths,
marking.
No marking on the holiday.
No, I think the biggest thing I could say is, you're able to imprint, so much wisdom and knowledge onto these children who will remember it for their whole life. Realistically, like kids won't like the subject initially; they might like it after you teach them. They might have just been able to come to your class and switch off for a little bit, but they needed that. And
a safe place.
Yeah, they need a safe place. And they might see you at Westfield or at the fruit shop or in Coles somewhere, and then they'll stop you and go, I really appreciate you just taking the time just to let me share an answer, or just to have a nap that one time in class because I really needed it that time. You can really like simple things like that. You don't know what's going on in their lives. Maybe they were at the hospital because their dad was in hospital. You don't know. So there's stuff like that. I think is the biggest thing. That I would say, like, you really do make a big impression, and it is a noble profession, kids will remember you forever. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure it has the highest graduate salary as well, 85K.
There you
So that's nice. It's more than accountants. But yeah, just you have a big. You're not just part of. It's just not just your classroom. It's the whole year, the whole grade, the whole school, the whole community. Then if you do play for the local community soccer team, the kids at the school are probably going to be there too. If you hang out in the certain suburb or the Westfield, they're going to be there too. So you're always going to bump into them. So they're going to realize that you're a normal human being as well. But yeah, you're just going to have a big impact on their lives, and they're going to remember it forever. I think is the biggest thing.
No, well said, Luke.
Absolutely.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming in
Yeah,
tonight.
really, really appreciate it.
Okay, you definitely sparked some good conversation amongst us too. Your perspectives. Yeah.
A bit of banter between English and maths.
Always.
We've got some topics to go ahead in future with, eh?
Oh no, in all respect, you have to be well balanced in both.
Yeah.
You cannot get anywhere with just one or the other.
Yeah.
Especially maybe in the teaching profession, but then, as you said, your mentor's giving you data.
Yeah.
He knows his maths.
Yeah.
Even with maths, we got to write reports.
Yeah.
And read a whole bunch as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Peace
Thanks for having me, guys.
tonight,
Thank
you. Well, everyone, I'm Chris Kalodakis.
And I'm Robert Namoski. Thank you again for joining us.
And thanks, Luke.
Thanks, guys.
And don't forget, like, subscribe, and please, anything else, just write it in the comments. Thank you.
Good on ya.
Man, nailed it.
You were amazing. Well done.
Thank you.